Uzoije is a renowned data strategist and financial economist with over 5 years of experience in transforming complex data sets into actionable policy insight. He has also worked with African governments and institutions, showcasing his expertise in data analysis and visualization. So today he will share his experiences and insights on economic storytelling, data analysis, and more. So thank you so much. Over to you, Mr. Obinna.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I want this to be a very interactive conversation, a very interactive session. Sorry. Actually, I want it to be one of the most interactive sessions we've had because it's easy to overlook how important it is to go through this process, especially when we're talking about policy formulation. Data gathering, it's very easy to overlook it. It's very easy to think or to minimize its importance. So we're going to be looking at it from very, very philosophical standpoints. It's not just going to be English. No, we'll be looking at it very practically. So I want us to understand the concept of gathering data. In mathematics, there's something we call T-1. T-1 is talking about the past, and T+1 is always talking about the future. So the mind in itself in mathematics is hardly represented in the present. It's always using the past to maybe talk about the future. So when we ask questions like, didn't you use your T-1? We are talking about, didn't you look at the past? Didn't you look at what happened in the past? Because we use the past to predict what will happen in the future. Okay, I'm going to use an example. There's this university in Nigeria here, University of Borno in Maiduguri. It has a very strong curriculum. It is known for having a very, very powerful curriculum. Nothing changes the curriculum. But a few years ago, there was flood, and the flood was so big, it destroyed a lot of things. And last year again, last year, this flood came back, and the impact was even higher, and it distorted their curriculum. So when analysts came talking about, trying to analyze the whole situation, they were like, this same thing happened the other time. Why didn't we use the data from that hazard to plan for this time? That's just what we should be looking into when we're talking about data gathering for policy formation. Sometimes you have to not only gather data, but try and capture it in a way that every part of what you want to achieve is well represented. We're going to come to all that. So let's just take note of the things that I said. The mind is always thinking about the future. Today I was thinking about this particular session now because I've been told in the future that I'm going to be presenting on this. So what I'm thinking about now is what will be the outcome of this. So I'll be using data from how well we understand this to understand what the outcome will be. So let's go ahead. Let's look at why data matters. What is the importance of data? So we're looking at it from the standpoint of policies. So one of the things I want us to go with today is that bad policies will always guess. Bad policies are mostly byproducts of guesswork. I think this is why there's a lot of malaria here. I think this is why there's a lot of poverty here. Bad policies will always guess, but good policies will always ask. And asking is one of the stages. But mind you, this is a very simplified version of, data gathering for policy formulation. It doesn't substitute for personal research. Everything that we talk about here, you can go back and actually look at them. But good policies become good because they ask. A very long time ago, in the 1800s, there was a particular sickness that came that, like, a particular community had this ailment and the numbers were increasing by the day. So it's also easy in things like this. It's also easy to identify correlation with causation. What do I mean? We saw that people that were analyzing the impact of that sickness saw that a lot of poor people lived there. So they thought that maybe they didn't have the money to buy maybe good food, and it resulted in this particular type of disease. So these are most of the things we're going to be looking at: correlation and causation. We're going to be looking at why good policies could always ask questions. But I want to touch on a few key points. First is state capacity. Just as the name is, the capacity of the state, capacity of the government's ability to implement policies, enforce laws, deliver public services, and respond to societal needs effectively. It determines whether policies succeed or fail in practice. So there is strong capacity. Some states have strong capacity. The institutions are strong. And you see, for example, here, Rwanda's use of real-time health data to track and reduce malaria. So another thing is that we are going to pay attention, because most of these things will make why do you think Rwanda's use of real-time data helped to track and reduce malaria? Why can't Nigeria's real-time health data help us track and reduce malaria? Why is Rwanda's own different from ours? Is Rwanda collecting data in silos, or do they have a unified data system? Is Nigeria collecting data in silos? Yes. I can use Nigeria as an example because I live here. Every hospital have their own system of collecting data. And you're going to another hospital, you have to maybe do the tests again. That's a huge problem. So before Rwanda can do this type of things, what things have been laid down to make this type of policy work? Strong institutions, strong capacity. Now we have weak capacity also. Good policies here can fail. Our governments, they come up with policies every day, and these policies are good. This example now says that a well-designed agricultural subsidy program failing due to corruption or poor local administration. Another one, these are real-time examples, like this Kenya's failed laptop for schools plan. This laptop for schools plan, it had procurement bottlenecks. So when things as simple as procurement bottlenecks can stop such the policy from failing, you see why good policies will always have to ask. And in asking, you checkmate the capacity of the state. You strengthen the capacity of the state. So I'm going to ask one question now. So I want us to just raise our hands and just give answers to this question, please. I don't want to pick, but I think I might pick people. So let me just, sorry. So who can just share one policy issue you think Africa faces today? Someone should just help me. One policy issue you think Africa faces today?
Thank you very much, Mr. Obinna. Oh, so one of those policy issues that I see is inconsistent technology and innovation policies.
Okay, that's beautiful. So we're looking at some case studies. This is Zambia's fight against malaria. This is how they fought against malaria. So the first thing they did is that there was the data aspect of it. Zambia used household survey data, as malaria indicator surveys, to identify districts with high malaria prevalence but low bed net coverage. Yeah, so they cross-referenced this with health facility records to map transmission reports. This was the first thing they did. You can see the pictures there. So they first of all went to collect, because they needed to handle this the prevalence of malaria in Zambia. So first thing they did is to collect data on this topic. This what we are doing now is supposed to supercharge our survey, the survey we are doing currently is supposed to help us. It's supposed to build knowledge around what we are doing. It's supposed to make us more informed. So the first thing they did here is data collection. Now the second thing they did was intervention. Let me just say that you've collected data and you have a way of putting and visualizing the data on a map of Gambia. So let me just give you a picture. The places with more malaria are the red patches on the map, and the places with less malaria are the blue patches or the yellow patches on the map. So these are the type of things you can do with data collection. With data, you can see in real time, and you know how to intervene. Now look at the intervention. targeted free long-lasting insecticide nets to high-risk areas. That's that Pulak province, based on the data. Now they partnered with NGOs for that. So the result now is that the result from this data-driven decision is that malaria cases fell by 50% in some of these districts. And it's a time series data. It's from 2015 to 2018. Now, under 5 mortality dropped significantly also. So let's look at another very interactive case study. Now, you know this movie. This is a movie known as Lost. Who has seen this movie?
Yeah, I've seen it, sir.
Okay, so where do you think data played a role here? Do you remember?
No, not exactly, sir. It was a long series.
It was a long series, I know, but it's just at the beginning. I saw this movie. When I saw this movie, I didn't know anything about data, but okay, look at this guy on the extreme left. Something happened when their aircraft landed on that island or crashed on that island. He counted everybody in the island. He numbered them. There were about 51 or so. And after counting them, he took the manifest of the aircraft and he started ticking everybody's name on that manifest. So when he was done taking the name, he saw that the number of people he counted on the island are actually more than the number of the people on the manifest. You understand? In the beginning of the movie, I was wondering why is his problem to know how many people are here? But he wanted to understand capacity. He wanted to achieve a strong state capacity, if I'm to put it with those words. So that's what he did. So at that point, he understood that there was an extra person. He understood that there was an extra person on the island before they came. So this is how significant it was. And you know how much danger he averted by this data collection? Because they came to an unknown island and they just crash landed and there was one person there before all of them came. So he saved them from a lot of things just because he understood the importance of gathering data, or he understood the importance of knowing our numbers. It's important that we know our numbers, and our numbers is not just how many we are. Our numbers is magnitude. Data collection, data gathering is geared towards understanding magnitude. We know that a lot of people have malaria, but what is the magnitude? How much do people have this malaria? How often does it come? When is it the peak periods of this malaria? Is it rainy season? When are the fall periods, or when are the lower periods of this malaria? Is it dry season? So it helps intervention. Let's go to the next slide. Now, types of data. I know that we know these things, we have quantitative data. Quantitative data is data that has to do with numbers. You understand? Just like macroeconomic indices, population surveys, population growth, GNI, GDP, all those things. Now we have qualitative data. Qualitative data is data that is not necessarily numbers, but they can be somewhat measured. You talk about things like maybe Human Development Index. You talk about things like the welfare of the people, the development of the people. Economic growth and economic development are different things altogether. So when you're looking at economic development, you're talking about qualitative data. But when you're talking about economic growth, you're talking about quantitative data. So sources of this type of data: government reports, Africa Development Bank, AU, you have NGOs, you have open data. Actually, these slides are very important, so they are going to be made available to everybody at the end of the session also. So another thing to look at also, actually, like I said in the beginning, this is a simplified version of this. There are more types of data. Like I mentioned in the beginning, there's time series data. Time series data is data that is collected over a discrete period of time. Let me give you an example. OPEC countries, we want to take the GDP of OPEC countries with their oil output from 2020 to 2025. That's time series data. There's also cross-sectional data. When you're not taking maybe from a particular time to another time, but you're just taking data of different, like African countries, GDP of African countries. This is cross-section. Now there's still panel data, which is a mixture of both cross-sectional data and panel data. So these are many types of data, but for policy, this is how we look at it. We say qualitative and quantitative, the sources of it. Now, another very important thing is ethics. And there's something that is written down here. One of the things I want us to still, take home. Ethical data is not just about compliance. Some people just see it's compliance, want to comply, but it's not just about compliance. Ethical data isn't just about compliance, but it's about building policies that truly serve the people. You understand that anytime you want to serve yourself, you'll be failing a lot of compliance. You will not be compliant. Anytime you want to actually serve the people, you start thinking of compliance. Sorry, start thinking of compliance. So let's look at some of these ethics. Let's look at privacy. Privacy says don't expose people's secrets. I had to break it down to very lay terms so that we understand. Don't expose people's secrets. Hide names, locations, and data. Again, ask permission first. Also, complying with laws like GDPR or local protection regulations. I'll explain that GDPR maybe in the next slide. Now, bias. Bad data, bad rules. What do I mean? When the data is not bad, when the data is bad, or when the data is biased, it distorts policy recommendations. It distorts policy recommendations. Okay, let's just read this. Don't survey cities don't just survey cities, include villages too. We've been doing this data gathering for a while, and I always look at the back end, and I always say, please let us reach out to rural areas. It's important to represent them too, because there'll be a skew, SKEW, there'll be a skew in our insights. It will be skewed towards the urban areas. Now, check if your numbers leave anyone out. For instance, if mobile-based surveys, I had to use this example because we are doing mobile-based surveys now, exclude older or rural populations, policies may overlook their needs also. So it's important that we devise ways to reach out to rural populations, especially when we are using mobile-based surveys. So we look at cultural sensitivity, look at cultural sensitivity. Data collection must respect local customs. We must work with the locals, languages and power dynamics to avoid harm or mistrust. For example, in pastoralist communities, gender roles may limit women's participation in surveys, requiring female enumerators or community leaders' approval. Ignoring cultural norms can render data useless or even deepen inequality. We'll just be generic about it. Let's just go and collect data from this village. We don't know whether there are rules and regulations that don't encourage equality. We have to make sure that everybody is represented, especially when we are trying to represent everybody. Now, about GDPR, I just thought that we should touch this because you shouldn't go through this program without at least knowing about this. The General Data Protection Regulation is a comprehensive data privacy law enacted by the European Union that came into effect on May 25, 2018. It regulates how organizations collect, use, store, and protect personal data of individuals within the EU and the European Economic Area, EEA. Now, the key principles of this is lawfulness, fairness, transparency. Data must be processed legally, fairly, and in a transparent manner. Some people collect data and they skew it by themselves because they need to achieve. This is not how we should go about data. We should really serve people. Remember, I said it's not about compliance, about serving people. Now, purpose limitation. Data must be collected for specified legitimate purposes. Specified and legitimate. Okay, something happened in 2023. I did a data collection. It was actually secondary data, but I did a large data collection exercise and analysis exercise of the 2023 elections in a state known as Abia State in Nigeria. We had 18 political parties then, and it was about 4,003 polling units. So you know how many data points we are talking about now? You understand? You know how many data points we're talking about. So if you multiply those two, you see that it's a large data set. So, but what was the purpose for that? For a specified purpose, I wanted to study voter behavior. Voter behavior. So I know that studying voter behavior will be something that will be done over time, because if you're talking about behavior, you should be talking about, you should have, before you say this is someone's behavior, or you can say, before you say this is how this person acts, you must have seen it over and again. So that was just like the first phase of that research. After in 2027, I'll still do the same exercise. In another election, I'll still do the same exercise. So at a point, I can now say this has been a trend, because I'm trying to look for a trend. It becomes a behavior when a trend has been noticed or has been observed, you know. So data minimization, only data necessary for the purpose should be collected. Now, this example, I like the fact that we are doing this data collection exercise. It's very important, because if you look at it, we are not asking anybody for their emails because we don't need them. We only need to collect the data that is necessary for the purpose. Now, accuracy, personal data must be accurate and kept up to date. Storage limitation, data should not be kept longer than necessary. Integrity and confidentiality, data must be processed securely, and you don't give out data that doesn't need to be in the public. You know, you don't give out people's data without their permission. So let us look at the scenario. This session is supposed to be a place where we look at these things in depth and share teams and, you know, help simulate something. But let us just go. This is a practical exercise. We're supposed to propose a policy to reduce youth unemployment in Nigeria. So let's look at the first one. You know, there's a difference between checking if you have food in your freezer and actually making the food. I just wanted to give this so that it helps us understand the difference between. So let's look at the quick warm-up. The quick warm-up is sorry. Now the quick warm-up is, maybe we are split into group. Now each group picks a data source. We're trying to look at data sources that are just readily available, you know, NLSS, you know, Nigerian Living Standards Survey, that's what it's called. Because we are talking about unemployment now, right? Unemployment in Nigeria. So we are looking at this NLSS survey, which is Nigerian Living Standards Survey. We are looking at LinkedIn job trends. You know, we are looking at this because they are readily available. So LinkedIn job trends now can tell us that the need for tech jobs or tech job vacancies increased by a certain percentage within a particular time. You know, living standards can tell us that you can give us information about the living standards of the people. So that's just a quick one. Sorry, this was not supposed to be a quick one. This was supposed to be a deep dive in this number 2. So we are now going to sketch a 3-step data plan. And what's this 3-step data plan? We're going to identify 2 data sets, maybe from UNESCO education statistics or Lagos startup funding reports. You know, we're going to identify 2 data sets from here. And after identifying these data sets, we are going to analyze them. We're going to find a correlation. You remember what I talked about, a trend? What is a correlation to start with? When two numbers or 2 variables are going the same way. You understand? There's also inverse correlation or inverse proportion. You know, but this, we're talking about correlation. They are going the same way. You know, are there numbers in the UNESCO education statistics and the Lagos startup fund reports that are going the same way, or are they going in opposite direction when we look at the columns? Now find one correlation. For example, tech skills training, higher employment rates. When Lagos startup, when UNESCO education stats say that there was a lot of tech skills training, was there a higher employment rate? I don't know if we are getting what I'm saying. When UNESCO, the data we got from UNESCO says that, UNESCO education statistics says that there was higher tech skills training. Was there a contemporaneous higher employment rate? Do you understand? Or was it an inverse? Was it inverse? When there was lower skills training, was there higher unemployment rate? You understand? I'm just trying to look for a correlation there. So after that exercise, what we are now going to do is that we're going to recommend we're not going to say give one policy idea. So we'll now say, since there has been a direct proportion, or there's been a correlation with tech skills training and higher employment rates, we can now say, let us have subsidized coding boot camps. You know, when we have subsidized coding boot camps, we'll see that we have higher chance of employing a lot of people, or higher chance of having a higher employment rate. So let me give an example that we have here. Example, data shows that 60% of unemployed youths lack digital skills. That data that we got from this NLSS, you know, it shows that 60% of unemployed youth lack what? Digital skills. While tech jobs grew on LinkedIn, even as they lacked these digital skills, tech jobs grew by 20% on LinkedIn analytics or LinkedIn job trends. You know, so what policy idea can come from there? We can now say we partner with tech hubs to train 10,000 youths in coding annually. This is why the government will now come out and say, let us train 1 million farmers this year. Let us empower 1 million farmers this year. Very good policies, but there should be data gathering before that, because you might actually have trained farmers and you're just going to train them again. And you know that anytime a policy is put out there, there's a lot of funding that goes towards it. A lot of funding goes to actuate it. So without proper data gathering and analysis, we can be wasting a lot of money. So I wrote something up here. I put something up here so that, because I told you this is a simplified version of this, but the main stages in data analysis, there are about 8 of them. There's the ask phase. Sorry, I'm trying to shift this away. So there's the ask phase, there's the prepare phase, there's the process phase, there's the analyze phase, there's the share phase, which is what we have on number 3 here. Why this number 3 is standing on this one is to show you how important sharing your insights is. You know, this is why a place like LinkedIn will give you job trends. Making data open, or keeping ethically, in an ethical way, opening data for the society to use creates a lot of development. You know, it encourages a lot of development. So it's very good to share your results. And this is where all these visualization tools come in. You just check Nigerian GDP for the last 5 years on Google now, and you go to maybe images, you'll see a lot of visualization showing you, you know, very readable or readily understandable graphs that help you, you know, grasp distance. This is because after this stage 1 and stage 2, they thought it's very important to share their outcomes. It's important that you serve your solution. People should understand the solution that comes from this. It's not only about sharing it, it's important to help them understand it, you know. So after sharing the solution, the act phase is now when what do you call it? We start acting on those. We now start making data-driven policies. We now start acting on them. Now the automate phase, this is what you do with maybe advanced data analysis tools, maybe Python and the rest. But this is when you automate your process, so that if this particular session comes, or a scenario like this comes up again, you can just fill it into this platform. It's just like this thing I told you people about, the research I did in 2023. All the slides, all the sheets, all of them are automated. All the codes on SQL are automated, waiting for the next election phase. You know, so that anytime they just come in, I just carry the data and pour into that place, and it does exactly what I need it to do. So I don't finish the system and go and delete it. No, it's there. Even if my drive goes empty, that it has to be left there, so that anytime I can come up again and just put data into the place, and it helps me generate the insights. So after that, so very importantly, you iterate. When you automate, you iterate this whole process again. So let's go to the next. So tools. There are tools for which you can use, tools with which we handle these things. These tools are very, very easy to use. Easy to use. They're easy, yes, but it's still important that you do personal research. Even as simple as Google data search, these search tools here, even as simple as Google data search, you can go on YouTube and ask how the best ways to use Google data search. Because if you just go there and start Who knows about Trends? Who knows trends.google.com? Trends. Okay, Trends is a platform on Google. I like Google so much. I'm actually biased when I'm talking about Google. So Trends is a platform on Google that you can use to compare. You can search for how maybe a keyword is trending or something. But one of the best parts of it is that you can use it to compare the how two words are trending. You can use it you can even download the data set, how much people have searched for these words, or how you compare, are people searching for these words more than they are searching for these words? You understand? It's just like during the election. What we are doing then is that to understand the candidates that are more popular, we'll put them on Google Trends. In Nigeria here, we'll put maybe Peter Obi and Tinubu and Atiku. And you see that it's bringing out real-time data. It's showing, you can take it to last year, you can take it to last 5 years, you can take it to this week. So it helps you understand even how to advertise. It helps you understand, you want to talk about something in health, you want to talk about something in climate, but you want to use the keywords that people are searching for. These are very beautiful tools that people can use and make good, the results will be very, very notable. So Google dataset search, very important. Data.gov, an American website, but very, very important also. Very important. Search tools. You can ask for a lot of search tools on AI and all that. You get a lot of them. Now, survey tools. I had to use Google Forms because this is what we are using now. Google Forms is very good. The only thing about Google Forms is that you cannot actually change the background so much. The backgrounds are maybe a little rigid, but this Google Forms is free, but there are other paid platforms that you can, redesign the whole space. There's Feathery. Sorry, this is not data.gov. There's Feathery too also. It's used for survey tools and data collection also. So analysis tools. Excel is one of the foremost analysis tools that you can use. But Excel can be, you can learn basics of Excel on YouTube. You can learn advanced levels of Excel on YouTube. But Excel can be limited. Excel is limited when the number of rows starts, surpassing maybe 1,000. Excel becomes limited. It starts shaking. It starts hanging. So this is why I brought up this SQL. It's called structured query language, and it is very, very, very easy to use. I'm not saying this thing to minimize the how difficult they are. These are very easy to use apps that you can generate huge insights from them at a go. And the best thing is that they have automated systems. You don't have to do a lot of coding and how we learned it. No, these things are automated these days. I even like, when I look at them, I feel bad because before we had to do you do from, you do where, you do data set, you do column, you have to refer to everything. You have to touch everything on the sheets before you get the data you're looking for. But now, just a click and a click here and a click there. They are very, very easy videos. After this session, you can reach out and I'll send you these videos, online, where you can see how these things are used and how they are used to generate very, very beautiful insights. Now, visualization tools, Tableau. Let me see if I can, let me see if I can show you my Tableau page. So you see, okay, good. This is what a Tableau page looks like. So you understand that this is public.tableau.com. You understand that there's a lot of visualizations that have gone. Okay, good. When I was trying to visualize your thematic areas, this is where I did it. When I was trying to enter age range, when I was trying to look at your age range, when I was trying to look at the thematic area spread, this is the 12 countries that are represented on the what's it called, in the internship program, these are the thematic spread, and then, so a lot of things, revenue streams, these are other topics that I looked into. So it came from like a lot of practice, but these apps are very, very easy to use. So let's go back to what we are doing. So there are videos that just help teach distance at a go. So that is it. So another one that is even better than Tableau is Microsoft Power BI. Very good for doing things like this. So if you can understand even the primary levels of this and understand how important it is to take data or to collect data and use data for policy formulation. Use data, it must not be even as big as policy formulation, but in the little things that we do, we understand that we measure every day. You will measure, even with your spoon, you're trying to measure. Even you measure even from the food you eat, from the toothpaste you put on your brush, but we forget to measure when we want to make decisions that affect our lives very, very much. So we collect data before policy formation to measure magnitude. Magnitude helps us allocate resources very well. It helps us make better decisions at the end of the day and not waste a lot of resources. So questions and answers. First of all, before you ask me questions, because I know you may have questions, I just need someone to look at this. What data will you need to tackle water scarcity in your hometown? I need very strategic answers. What data will you need to tackle water scarcity in your hometown? Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I think you could start with the population, then also find out the number of points where there's access to water, either the number of boreholes, number of wells, and then the volume or capacity of these water points. So if you have what the population and we can estimate what their usage is, and we know the number of water points we have and the volume that those water points supply, then we can tell is there an adequate supply, or do we need to add more? And if we'll be needing to add more, where exactly, considering the concentration of the population in different areas and their volume.
I didn't get you.
Hello? Sorry?
I didn't get your name. We didn't get your name.
Okay, I'm Daniel.
Okay, good. So first of all, you talked about
Daniel.
population. You talked about population. How many people need this water in these areas, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. After population, you're now talking about volume. What is the amount of water that go into these areas? You understand? There's a lot of data you need in this type of thing. You're looking at population, you're looking at people, you're looking at even the facilities that are around there. Are there industries there? Are there fish farms there that use a lot of water? In-depth research. This is how you really allocate resources efficiently. This is how we allocate resources efficiently. Does any other person have something to say? I'm looking at the questions on the chat box. Okay. Health policies and agricultural policies. We are talking about policies that policy problems that Africa face currently. One significant policy issue in Africa faces is access to quality education. I believe many African countries struggle with inadequate educational infrastructure, insufficient funding, shortage of qualified teachers, leading to limited opportunities for citizens in particularly in rural areas. That's beautiful. Cyber security policy. Yeah, cyber security policy. That's beautiful. Yeah, that's beautiful. Education. Someone has said that. Now, open grazing policy in Nigeria. Now you understand that these things are problems because, first of all, or most importantly, qualitative data was not consulted. And under qualitative data, remember that we talked about engaging with stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders when you're talking about open grazing policy? You understand? Who are the stakeholders here? Why should we allow open grazing in a place that should be used by maybe just cars? Those type of policies, we are just there was not a lot of consultation to make this type of policies. Youth and education policies, trade agreements, beautiful. So someone asked the question, do the GDPR laws work in Africa if it's only around the EU, EEA, or do we have our own common laws when it comes to just NDPR for Nigeria? There's NDPR, like I wrote there too, that apart from GDPR laws, there are local data protection policies. that help us not to misuse the data we collect, because data can be used in very bad ways also, you know. So there are local data policies, data protection policies, you know, that help protect the people's data, so people's information. How do you measure the correlation between the two variables? Like you use the software to measure it. Okay, yeah. Okay, that's in the prepare phase of the data, the prepare and the process phase of the data. You have two columns. Maybe you're looking at unemployment in let me just say unemployment rate, but I want to use a particular sector, maybe in the technological, you know, fields, maybe tech skills, you know, you're looking at unemployment there, and you're seeing that there is a reduction, you know, or you're looking at the data and you're seeing that, okay, from 2020 to 2025, maybe 2020 it was high. You understand these things better when you put them maybe on a graph, and you're seeing that the 2020 the unemployment rate for 2020 was high, and as we come to 2025, it's coming down. You understand? But you're now looking at another column that is showing you tech skill acquisition, and in 2020 it was low. You understand? But as we come down to 2025, remember I said what T-1 and T+1. As we continue on the T+1 side of the equation, we see that as we get to 2025, that the training or the tech skills training or tech skills acquisition was going higher. So now the correlation is what inverse. There's a trade-off now. You understand? So you understand this things, but that's why I said try and look at these visualization tools. They help us easily, even Excel. With Excel, you can just choose, maybe one of these days, if we have time, we can look into other things. But with Excel, you can actually do a graph that shows you, even you have a stacked bar chart. It shows you that as this one was up, this one was down. As this one was down, this one was up. You know, so let's look. Okay, I would like to find out the average. Okay, someone is answering the question. The average volume of water needed in a household per day, the population of my community, that's beautiful. The sources of water, whether government, natural resources, you know, or personal private boreholes, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. These are some things I'd like to find out. Okay, how will data be cleaned and analyzed? Beautiful question. Now, you see that most of what we clean when we are cleaning data is, first of all, outliers. Outliers are very important to remove. Okay, we are saying that we are saying that the unemployment rate in 2020 is 20%. The unemployment rate in 2021, sorry, let me say 2%. The unemployment in 2021, 5%. The unemployment in 2023 is 6%, but the unemployment in 2024 is 300%. You know, this is going to skew the data. You will not know how, but it will make your recommendation distorted. You know, there's a need to clean that data. Because it's either you're cleaning it by removing it. It's sometimes recommended clean by removing it, or you go and investigate again and understand why. Because every outlier has a story around it. It's either that you're going to investigate and find out the real cause of that. Because something happened. I was looking at GDP of Nigeria from even before from 1958, I think. I was going down, and I got to a point between 1967 and 1970. There was no GDP. GDP was like 0 points. That was an outlier. So I asked, is the GDP, why don't we have a GDP records within this period? And I understood that this is when we had the Civil War. You know, the GDP of a country is not actually calculated during the war, because we are not producing. We are just trying to survive. So then there was an outlier. So these are the things we clean. We try to understand if there are spaces, they call them white spaces, you know, to remove them so that it doesn't see a number as a word. They are strings, they are booleans, you know, they are numbers, they are integers when we come to data. So there are years, there are calendar, there's calendar data also where you have dates. You know, you have 1969. You have to train your computer or clean it so that it doesn't see 1960 as 1960. You know, it's seeing it as a year. You know, so these are all the things you clean in data. So like you said, I also like to know the effects of water scarcity in the community so that I have a case to present to stakeholders who are good. This is where we have qualitative data. This is now when you talk to the people and say, what are the effects? What does it cost? Okay, I think that is the question. Does any other person have another question?
Yes, I wanted to ask how do you think data analysis can be used to drive policy decisions in Africa? Yeah.
Okay, I think this is just all we've been talking about. It's all we've been talking about, but data analysis we're talking about data gathering, not analysis. So data gathering is understanding what the people are going through, hearing from the people. And hearing from the people can be either qualitative or quantitative. Hearing from the people can be either qualitative or quantitative. You can say, people, rate your experience with going to the hospital and okay, going to maybe give birth to a child in your local hospital. Rate your experience from 1 to 10. And they are saying 2. Everybody's come. The average rate in there is maybe 5. There's a problem. But you cannot know these things for real when you don't talk with the people, when you don't converse with the people. So when you have that data from them, you now go back to your analysts and now look they're saying, look at the trend in this particular location. There's a lot of people saying 2. There are people rating our local medical systems or healthcare systems. They're saying they're rating it at 2. What's the problem? So you act, when you share that insight, when the analyst shares the insight with you, you now say, okay, let me go here and act. Sometimes when you see that type of data, you now need to ask more questions. You now need to go there and say, why is this place rated 2 in a scale of 1 to 10 or even 1? You now find out maybe they don't have electricity, maybe they don't have the right any equipment at all. Maybe you see that people are dying there every day because of maybe medical neglect. But policies cannot be effective when we guess. Like I said in the beginning, bad policies guess, but good policies ask. Good policies ask. Good policies collect data. Good policies analyze this data so that the decisions that comes thereafter will be what? Data driven. Thank you. Any other question?
Thank you so much, sir. Victor, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Temiloluwa. Thank you, Mr. Obinna. That was a very insightful session. I have a question, but I just want to tell the background story before doing that. In 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, when everybody was home, myself and 3 other guys in Nigeria were trying to build a chatbot that could kind of streamline doctor-patient interaction, like an agent that can reduce waiting time and help mitigate the effects of coronavirus for people with underlying illnesses in Nigeria. So I was a data scientist on the team, and I was looking out for textual data to train the model that captured conversations between medical practitioners and the patients or patients. So to cut the long story short, we couldn't find any, unfortunately. But when we had a conversation with an health professional, he pointed out that one of the major problem and issue that we have in some sectors in Nigeria is that we are still used to the old ways in Nigeria. Most of the sectors, they do not store their data digitally and may not even be willing to release them, which is quite understandably, honestly. And that's why we found it very difficult to get any useful data in our own case. So now my question is, what kind of policy would you say Africa needs to solve these data-related discrepancies? I believe that if this continues, it could kind of limit what we can achieve with technology in Nigeria or in Africa generally. And yes, I do understand that we need to uphold data privacy, especially in health sector where patient data is extremely sensitive. So that's my question.
Okay, thank you so much. You can hear me, right?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hear me? Okay, good. So you see, this is why I brought out this slide now where you have action time, share. It's very important to open data. Let me just use it literally. open data policies are very, very important because they lead to a lot of development, a lot of development. Now, most of the reason why people will not open their data or leave their data to public use is because they are they did not anonymize the data. They failed some parts of, let me go back to that slide and see. Let me go back to that. Okay, where you have NDPR. Remember I said data minimization, only, look at number 3, only the data necessary for the purpose should be collected. So maybe you're going to a hospital and you want to collect data of patients and you see that the names are there, the names of the people. You should not put that out without, what's it called? Without the people consenting to it, you know? So anonymizing the data, defining the purpose of the data, the people have not really complied. The people that collect data, they have not really complied with all these principles. And so they cannot share. They use it for their personal or their, organizational purposes. Maybe the hospital uses to maybe having their patients database and all that, but it's very important to have open data policies that anonymizes data, but leaves data in a way that everybody can have access to it and use it for development. Because if that your application came up now, it will bridge a lot of disconnect between patients and doctors. I know that I have a friend that works for Kenya. He works for a hospital in Kenya, but he works from Nigeria here, and they use one of those apps. They use one of those applications, and it's very efficient. He's a doctor, but he doesn't go to the hospital. Immediately you said it, he just rang a bell, but you see that the data that is gathered from those type of systems are used to serve the people. Remember when I talked about compliance, serving the people. If you're serving the people, you will understand how to anonymize things that concern them or things that are related or akin to them, so that a bigger user base can tap into it and even create better solutions. Thank you. Did I answer your question?
Yes, sir, that was perfect.
Yeah, thank you. So open data policies, we should clamor more for open data. That's why you see the survey we are doing. Like I said, this is supposed to supercharge us for this survey. This survey we are doing is supposed to actually, later we're going to share our findings, allow people understand these things, because there's no reason to bring the data or you just light a candle just to hide it. No, you don't bring the data and just hide it, but we'll anonymize it in a way that, have you gone there now? Can you trace anybody? Even you people were sharing the survey forms, but you people didn't even know how to understand that the people have, actually participated because of how much we anonymized it. So that tomorrow you can share it and nobody will say you put the person cannot even trace the person's data, So that's it. So someone asked the last question, I think. I'm not sure if I missed this, but what mechanisms can be put in place to monitor and evaluate the impact of policies informed by data? Okay, good. Let's go back to this slide. There's a place I said iterate. Let's go back to that. Okay, sorry. So I said ask, prepare, process, analyze, share, act, automate, and now iterate. Now let's go to Zambia. Let's go to the case study we have on Zambia. So after intervention, after they did the data part of it, number 1 was the data part of it, the Zambia used. Number 2 was the intervention part. Number 3 was the result. How did they find the results? Because they went back to the data part of it. You understand? They now went to survey. How have this thing that we did, how did it work? This is now when they understood that malaria cases fell by 50% in some districts. Do you understand? This is the monitoring and evaluation. The monitoring and evaluation starts by iteration. You must go back. It's an iterative process. You don't do it and close. You don't do it and close. That's why we have a monitoring and evaluation team in this internship program. Because after doing what we are doing, they will now go and check all the things we are teaching, all the things we are learning, all the things we are doing. How well has it impacted on the people we are doing it with? So there should be an open data policy, but one that anonymizes sensitive information. Very beautiful. Thank you so much. Any other person? Any other question? Okay, thank you so much.